My reflective narrative is called Being Spoiled Isn't Easy. In Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, there's a snobby little girl that says, "Daddy, I want a squirrel." I like to think I did not sound as horribly spoiled as she did, but I remember saying to my parents that I wanted a horse. I did not ask for one. I said I wanted one. There is a difference. A difference which meant that I expected to get the horse that I wanted. They always told me that horses were a lot of work and that I would have to take care of it every day. I said that I would, of course, and also reasoned that my sister had received her own horse when she was 12 years old. I was 12 years old and did not have a horse, which indicated that it was only fair for them to buy me a horse. When a friend of the family had called my parents and told them about a horse down the road from them, we buckled up in the van and set off to see the horse. All we knew from the phone call was that the horse had been neglected because his owner just left him in the pasture and never took care of him, but that the horse would be a great ride for me. We pulled into a gravel driveway that led to stables and an indoor riding arena. I got out of the van and took my helmet just in case I would get the chance to ride. The stable owner and trainer, Jen, came over to us to show us the horse. I followed her, and when she stopped to point him out, I was in awe. She told me his name was Walter, and that he rode like a dream. I was so excited that my heart was racing and skipping beats at the same time. Even though the November air was cold and bitter, my body felt warm. He was beautiful. I fed him an apple, and anyone who saw it would have thought it was the only nice thing anyone had ever done for him. He took it with such gratitude and enjoyed it like it was some sort of blissful delicacy. I felt like my insides were humming because there was a constant buzz in my tummy, just like the one I felt on my lips when I hummed. It was so good to feel like I was doing something kind. I got to ride Walter, and while I was high up on his back in that tooled leather saddle, I felt like there was nowhere else in the world that I belonged. It felt natural, comfortable, exhilarating, and powerful. I tried to keep the smile off my face because I knew it would look silly, but even when I bit my lip, the smile never disappeared. I told my parents that I had to have this horse. I had to. I had connected with Walter. I had fallen in love at first sight. Jen told my parents that Walter was up to date on shots and wormers, and they told her that they were going to buy him. She wrote out a contract, which my parents signed, and Walter was mine. We came back another day to trailer him home. He met my sister's horse, played in the snow, ate like he had never seen food, and slept like he had comfortably lived there forever. I rode him, brushed him, fed him, watched him play, and developed countless hopes and dreams for the two of us. I talked to Walter about all of my dreams. I dreamed of winning shows together and playing in the pond during hot summer days. I made him promises. I promised to spend all of my time with him and to make him the happiest horse alive. I sang to him every day when I brushed him. When I was sad, I cried into his mane, just like all the girls did in those cliché horse movies. My bond with my horse was not so cliché, though. I was very emotionally unstable. I had trouble developing normal relationships because I had been neglected for a portion of my life, just like Walter. I also had major depressive disorder and a generalized anxiety disorder. At that point, the only thing keeping me from killing myself was this big, beautiful animal. This horse became my everything. If he died, I died. That was the kind of attachment I had to this horse, which is not normal and healthy form of attachment. One February day, I had just gotten off the bus after a grueling day of school in the 6th grade. I had been particularly antsy all day. I just wanted to get home and be with my horse. I had a strange feeling in the pit of my stomach. I had not been able to distinguish the exact feeling. It felt like sadness, guilt, fear, and uncertainty all at the same time. I felt like something bad was going to happen, but I could not tell if the feeling was just my anxiety flaring up or not. I had pushed the feeling down and ignored it for most of the day. As I peered out to the barn, I noticed that my horse was rolling in the mud. The air was crisp and smelled earthy and moist because of the nonstop rain we had been getting after the snow melted. Everything was completely soaked through. The ground had become more like chocolate pudding. It was sunny at the particular moment, but despite the sun, the sky was gray rather than baby blue. Usually I went inside the house and got a snack before I did anything with Walter. But that day, I decided to drop my book bag in the breezeway, fill up a bucket at the water spigot attached to the outside of the house, and go straight to the barn. When I walked in, I suddenly dropped the bucket and water splashed on my leg. The gate to his stall was bulged out, like he had either fallen into it or kicked it. It was not entirely broken down, which is why he was still in his portion of stall and pasture. I hurried over and opened the misshapen gate. Walter was rolling in the mud still, but he got up to come see me. He groaned with every step he took to enter his stall. It physically pained me to watch him suffer through walking just to come see me. The feeling in my stomach sunk, and I got lightheaded. "Baby, aw, baby, you don't feel well, do you? What's wrong, honey?" I began to cry because I didn't have to ask what was wrong. I knew he had colic. Colic is when a horse gets severe abdominal pain for whatever reason. It could be from eating too much, eating something bad, or drinking very cold water too fast. It is fairly common in horses because they can't throw up like people can. If something got stuck in their gastrointestinal tract, it's stuck there until the horse can work it out. Not all horses can work it out, though. Since they are in so much pain, they end up rolling around, which can end up worsening their state. "Is it colic, baby? Does your tummy hurt? Hang in there, baby. I'm going to get someone to help us." I whispered to myself that I hoped it was not too late. I bolted to the house. I could feel the adrenaline thick in my veins, being pumped through my heart and back through my body. I was out of breath and fighting tears when I told my mom what was going on. "He'll be just fine, Michaela. I'm sure everything will be okay," my mother had said. My sister came out to help me, and my mom called the vet. My sister and I were only 2 teenage girls at the time, but we were holding up a 1,500-pound horse. My sister was pushing as hard as she could on the one side of Walter to make sure he did not go down over there, and I was doing the same on the other side. He was not able to lay down and roll if we kept pushing him with all the force we had. Every so often his body swayed to my side because he wanted to lay down, and I pushed until he stood straight again. Our feet were sinking in the mud, and we were putting ourselves in danger with every second we spent so close to a horse who could drop and roll right over us or kick us as he rolled. The mud sucked intently on our feet, which slowed any possibility of us escaping if Walter gave up on us and dropped to the ground. If he had not already flipped his intestines from rolling, we wanted to help him work out whatever was clogged up in his stomach. We coaxed him forward and did our best to walk with him through the mushy ground that kept trapping my boots. It felt like everything was working against us. It was getting dark, but the barn did not have any lights. My dad ended up getting home from work. It had skipped my mind that I had put his boots on instead of mine, but he said nothing about it when he reached the barn. He simply hung up one of the lanterns from his large collection, and he walked over to evaluate the situation. He maintained a poker face while he assessed it all, but I already knew that nothing good was coming my way. 3 hours later, the vet had made it to my house. I was tired and infuriated that an emergency call would take so long to show up to. The vet avoided the mud despite the boots he was wearing and refused to be in a stall with my horse because he thought it was dangerous. Little 6th grade me had not left that dangerous horse's side. All that Dr. Gifford had to say was, "This horse is sick." I was angered and saddened by that statement. One part of me wanted to start screaming at the vet for stating the obvious. The other part of me was just plain sad that my baby was going through this. The vet had us bring my darling best friend out in the front lawn. He merely looked at my horse before saying, "I don't think this is just gas. It looks like he has already flipped his intestines. This horse is in pain." He had flipped his intestines from rolling since he had been in so much pain. "You have 2 options," Dr. Gifford began again. "You could send him in for a $10,000 surgery that isn't guaranteed to work, or we could put him down." Tears fell from my eyes as sobs escaped from my lips. My neighbors could have easily heard me. I was bellowing, "No, no, my baby, this can't be real. No, I'm so sorry, Walter. I'm so sorry, baby." This is my fault. I should have known. There was no real end to what I was screaming. They were just words strung together. My nose was draining like a faucet from crying and the cold weather. I looked like a mess, but all I cared about was that Walter was hurting. I knew my dad had not wanted me to hear his response. He probably had not even wanted to hear his own response. He choked out in a husky voice, "We don't have the money." I knew he was crying even though I would not make eye contact with him. I looked at Walter's face and noticed that even my sister, who had a stone-cold heart, was crying. She would never admit it. I knew what was happening, so I went over to Walter and I hugged him. I told him goodbye and to be good in heaven. A part of my soul was being ripped right out of my body. I could just picture the jagged edges where it had been torn. I told Walter that I would miss him and always love him. I could not stand the thought of making him suffer any longer, so I kept my farewell short. The vet injected a pain-killing liquid that would numb any kind of pain Walter was in. I wanted his last few minutes of life to be pain-free. My sister, my horse, and I were covered from head to toe in mud, tears, blood, and sweat. Dr. Gifford drew liquid into another syringe. He counted to 10, and as the rain poured and lightning cracked overhead, my other half fell to the ground. Mud splashed up around him. I watched death seep into his warm brown eyes, and I glided my hand lightly over his thick fur coat for the last time as I could feel his soul leaving our presence. All I heard was apathy in the vet's apology, and all I felt was sheer pain in every atom of my being. Apparently, Walter had never been up to date on wormers like Jen had said he was. We had not known that Walter had worms, and they ended up giving him the terrible stomachache that caused his colic. I was not bitter with Jen like everyone else was. I was only bitter with myself. I felt as though I could have done so much more to care for him, or as though I could have prevented this tragedy in some way. I felt responsible for breaking all of my promises to my best friend. I felt guilty for letting our hopes and dreams fall through the cracks. I could not stop beating myself up over it. But in the end, I learned that some things just cannot be fixed. Not everything is meant to be fixed, and not everything is fixable. There was no going back. No matter how hard I prayed, Walter was dead, and so was the desire to ever have a horse again. My parents bought me a horse like I had always wanted, and I fell madly in love with him, only to have him ripped away from me. Nothing had prepared me for the sudden string of events that led to me crying over my horse's lifeless body. Veruca Salt got whatever she wanted in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but as I saw my pride and joy lying motionless and dead under a crinkly blue tarp weighted down by blocks of shiny black coal, I realized something. Maybe I did not want to get every single thing that I wanted anymore. Maybe I did not want to get anything I wanted at all, because getting what I wanted meant I had something to lose, and I never wanted to feel the pain of that kind of loss ever again. So, that's my reflective essay. I hope you guys liked it.